episode 20 of the XrmToolCast. In this episode, we take a look at the UML Diagram Generator, a tool for the XrmToolBox. It's based on PlantUML, so we dive into that as well and some of its features. We also talk through the advantages and disadvantages this tool has over the Entity Relationship Diagram Creator, another tool for the XrmToolBox. We've invited Reece Campbell to come sit with us, who is an early adopter and beta tester for the tool. And I also make a personal plea for some free testing. So sit back and enjoy, and let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the XrmToolCast. With me, your host, Daryl, always racing the bar, and Jonas. I've got more XrmToolBox tools than I have kids. Rap. How are we doing, Jonas?
It's great, thank you. Actually, I have twice as many tools as kids, which means
Wow.
I have quite a few kids as well. Yeah, but
Let's hope that ratio at least doesn't diminish.
well, no, the difference will only get bigger. I promise you.
Okay. All right. Cool. Because you did get married recently, so you never know.
I did, yeah, and we're married without kids because we already have 6 of them. So none more of that.
None more of that. That sounds like it belongs on a T-shirt. So, so this is kind of a fun episode because rather than you saying, "Hey, I've got this tool that I just created," I looked out on Twitter and said, "Oh, you've got this tool you just created. We probably should talk about that." So today we brought in a special guest. Do you want to go ahead and introduce him since you have a little more relationship with him than I do?
Yeah, I think it's probably just a year ago I met Reece Campbell the first time, which was at the Scottish Summit or whatever it was called last year in Glasgow in Scotland, and he is now one of my users, so I love him for that and for being a great guy. So anyway, so Reece Campbell from Scotland somewhere. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on, guys.
Sure.
So Reece, you've met Jonas before in real life, I guess, IRL, if we're gonna use the fun acronyms here.
I have,
yes. And you've helped him with at least this tool, at least testing it out, or did you ask him to do anything with this tool, or did you just one of the early adopters of it?
So very much early adopter. I've always enjoyed Jonas's tools. I find that his approach to making the tools is very well thought out, and I've used, I mean, at the very least, certainly the trace log and the fetch XML builder considerably over the years. So it was, I was probably a little bit starstruck actually about a year ago when I met him in Scotland, because it was.
Come on.
No, I mean seriously, it was one of those sort of things of I've been a user of these tools for so long, and then you kind of think, oh, there's just this person off in the distance, and then you kind of meet him and you're like, yeah, he's a nice guy. So
Who knew?
No, that was. Yeah, exactly. Who knew? Also does a really good session on building an XrmToolBox tool. So always good to watch.
It's not
that.
an Xbox game that
No, it's not.
accidentally said recently.
Yeah,
No.
you should try that as well, though. That would be good.
So the short version of XrmToolBox is now Xbox.
I think it should be. That would be great. Nickname it
should be.
Xbox going forward.
We'll have a chat with Tengi.
I have a feeling that the Microsoft legal and marketing team would probably reach out to you if you continue to go down that route.
Okay, maybe not then.
We'll just call it XTBox then.
Yes, XTBox.
XTBox.
Awesome.
So let's start at the beginning here. So what is this new tool that you've got out, Jonas? What should we be using now?
So I've got a new tool since I was, as always, when you're in a project, you're starting it up, you want to visualize the entity model, the information model you create for the system. And I know there's one existing from Bas van de Sande that is Entity Relation Diagram Creator. It's been around for a couple of years, and it doesn't always do what I want it to do, and I don't want to start from scratch with Visio. So I actually found this text-based UML language, or whatever you could call it, that's called PlantUML. So it's really easy to type as a text file, and it can render the models visually for you. You cannot affect the rendering itself or drag the boxes around and so on, but you can get it to render, and usually when you're coming from a techie perspective like me, that's enough. I want to be able to have the text file, work with the model, and so on. So, well, that's one side of the story, to start writing your PlantUML files. But then, of course, okay, you could generate this from the metadata in the system. So that was sort of the first idea of the UML diagram generator that I now have released as of a week or so. So that's the tool. Generate these PlantUML files to get a visual rendering of your information model.
The UML Diagram Generator.
Yes, that's the one.
UDG. Although you didn't shorten to UDG, you UML DG. That's your logo. That's the first one. That's not a. I guess the auto number. No, auto number manager is a 3-letter acronym too, because you got the pound sign for the number. So this is the first one that you've elected not to go with the icon that's 3 letters or three.
Well, yeah,
three
but
things.
it's only in the icon. The behind the scene, it's still called UDG.
All right.
So short version of UML is U.
Yep. Yes.
Anyway, never mind. Yeah, so that's the tool. And when I first hinted about something that was coming, I think the first reaction was from Reece. Wow, PlantUML, love it, or something like that in Scottish. Or South Africa. No, you're not Scottish, actually. You're from South Africa as well.
I've lived most of my life in Scotland, but yeah, I was born in South Africa. Left there when I was 8, so I don't know where the accent exactly came from, but I've been in Scotland since, 94 now, roughly.
Oh, all right. So with some weird accent, he tweeted, wow, PlantUML, love it.
Yeah, so it's interesting, the PlantUML side, I hadn't known anything about PlantUML until would have been a few months ago, actually. A guy I was working with on a project introduced me to it as a way of diagramming, and it really is fantastic. It's a fantastic tool. It's I don't actually know how to describe it as such, apart from the fact it seems to be a language, a schema that allows you to build a diagram using the language, and then you've got extensions that actually do the generating of the diagram itself. So it is a bit techy and difficult to work with in terms of at first, but once you've got up and running, it is fantastic. And for anyone that likes to work at the command line or any general developer, then it is a fantastic tool to get to know.
Let's not scare everyone off here. You don't have to work in the command line.
No,
here. You don't have to be a developer. And actually, I think the thing with the tool is that you don't even have to know this PlantUML language or syntax.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's one of the things that's quite nice about it. It gives you a nice user interface to generate the files, which you can then make use of. And then over time, you can maybe learn what it is and tweak it if need be, add your comments and things like that. But the tool certainly makes it easier for you to dive into PlantUML and diagram out the entities.
Yeah. So I have to say, I was really happy when I saw your tweet there where you appreciated the effort, because I was thinking PlantUML, maybe this is just some very fringe, arbitrary initiative from someone, and the website plantuml.com doesn't sort of encourage you to think this is a serious standard, because it's really crappy. It looks like something from '85.
I'm not impressed. It looks like the website is something that I would have created.
yeah. So I don't really sort of see the connection between that crappy website. I'm sorry if any of the creators are listening to this. Of course you are.
I think it's reflecting the actual PlantUML work, because it's just basically just text with a little bit of color.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but yeah, it looks like it could have been made in the 1994 and worked just fine. So.
Yes, probably. And it's filled with ads, so you don't really know what's content and what's ads there. But yeah, you don't really have to go there, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah.
So when I was sort of going into this path, I realized I have another tool that does very much the same thing. Look at metadata, you get to select entities, relationships, and attributes and so on to generate some sort of text file, which is the tool you love the most, Daryl, of course, the late bound constant generator.
I as much as I admire you and our friendship, I have no idea why you'd want to spend all the time and effort to have generated stuff and not have it early bound. Like, it just blows my mind.
Because it's set the path for the UML diagram generator. since I refactored it a bit to make it more dynamic to work with this new tool as well. But actually, the code behind is like 98% is the same for the both tools, including the forms and so on. So I'm reusing the same concept of sort of selecting what you want to include in your files. So this means in the tool you can select entities. You can do it based off of a solution, which entities are included there, something, and then say, okay, include these attributes or no attributes, just to get sort of the entity model without the details, and the relationships that you want included to see how the entities are related to each other. And you tried it, Reece.
I did, yes. Yeah, the first impressions were certainly good. The ability to select all the entities and the fact that it generated the meta or queried the metadata in real time the way it does, it's phenomenal, because I have built, or I've attempted to build something that does not the diagram side, but the querying the metadata and trying to work out what you can do with different attributes on different entities, and it's not simple. So it's
I can tell. I realized that when you started submitting issues on GitHub, saying, "Hey, it shouldn't work like this. It should work like that." Man,
hey, you asked for issues. I tested it. It's one of the things. I'm not a tester. I'm definitely on the developer side of things. Although even more.
I think you've got potential.
Well, if you're
I love it.
If you're on the developer side of things, you need to be fixing the bugs, not just telling them about the bugs.
That's why I say I'm not the best of developers. I prefer breaking them. I should have been a tester. I really should. I should start my career again as a tester.
In your heart, you're a tester.
That's exactly it. Yes.
All right. So I just started playing around with this while we were talking. And so far things aren't going all that great. The first time I opened it up, I got an error, and so but I also needed to update XrmToolBox. So I updated XrmToolBox to the newest version, and got past whatever that first error was. And now when I went to go generate my UML, it's giving me an error about looks like it's trying to start a Win32 process, and it's giving me some error with that. So am I doing it wrong?
Did you select to open the file once it was generated? Because
I did save, and then I did think I said, yes, open the file. Yes. Do you not do that?
Yeah, it generates a file with .plantUML, and if you haven't installed the extension to Visual Studio Code or something else, then understand that that's Windows saying, I don't know what to do with this file.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Not the prettiest experience, but still.
Now I need to go and say, hey, capture that error message and give a prettier one of, hey, go download this for extension or something. Okay. All right. Well, it looks a lot. I'll give you this. It looks a lot prettier, the UI does, than the website for PlantUML.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll give you that.
So have you tried any other options, Daryl, or how do you work with your entity models and when you want to visualize them? Or are you starting from scratch in Visio or PowerPoint?
So usually I manage to find other people to do diagramming for me. But whenever I did use the entity relation diagram creator.
Okay.
But I've only used that like twice.
Yeah.
I managed to get it to work to do what I wanted to do, so I was happy with it. But so yeah. But now I guess I need to be convinced of why I should use the other one. Where are the areas that this is a step forward, and where maybe are the areas that this is a step back?
Yeah, Reece, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean,
what?
The use of PlantUML is nice, because that certainly for a developer, it allows you to actually stick it into source control alongside your code as well. So it's great for documenting relationships and how you've actually built out a system, especially as a developer.
Let me stop you right there. So it's generating this text file that's PlantUML. And then you're saying you're going to check that in, so that way you can have an idea of how things are changing. Then is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's so you can do that. You can use it to actually track what's changing over time, but you can also use it if it's checked in source control. You could also use that to generate documentation automatically. Now, I mean, that gets into more advanced techniques, but that's one of the great things about things like PlantUML. It allows you to stick that in source control, stick into DevOps, and then through the DevOps pipelines actually build out documentation. So it's a good language for doing that. The other sort of tools that you get tend to give you a visual representation, so a picture. And a picture is all well and good, but that's just literally a point in time. Here's a picture. You can't really source control that. You stick it in a Word document, you share a Word document, and we all know the joys of sending Word document or Excel document version 1, version 2, version Bob's version, Reese's version. So it's a single source of truth that you can stick in your source control, your source code alongside your customization. It's just a nicer way of doing that kind of thing. And also one thing that's worth saying, the PlantUML standard, the way it works, it's a schema for putting together a text file that represents an entity relationship diagram and other types of diagrams and other types of relationships. So in terms of the generating the actual image, that gets done in a separate way. So in this particular tool, Jonas actually has the tool rendering an image that you can make use of as well. But you could also just as well, as I say, stick that text into source control and have a different tool actually generate the image in a different way. There's also, it's very flexible, basically.
And actually, well, the tool itself does not generate the image, but what I would recommend is easiest way to get started. Either you can just take that PlantUML file, copy the contents of that, and use some online service where you can do this. There's something called planttext.com where you can just paste that PlantUML and get the visual rendering. Or I'm using an extension for Visual Studio Code that just does this for you. And you can even, it requires some sort of engine rendering this, and you can set it up locally or on your company network or something like that, or you can just use the one provided by plantuml.com. So you enter a specific URL there, which is their own hosted service. If you're super scared, you're sharing super secret stuff from your organization, well, you probably better set up your own service to do this. But otherwise, just it's quite easy to get started. I have some detailed information on how to do that on my webpage as well.
Actually, on that point of the using the extension, so that was one of the issues that when I was first introduced to PlantUML is actually, again, it's set up in the first instance because you have to have that sort of diagram generator installed, and then you get an extension. Is there any extension? I'm just actually in Visual Studio Code right now looking at a PlantUML document that's just been generated, and there's a bunch of different extensions that are there. Can you recommend a specific one to use?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I have on my webpage, it'll be in the show notes, jonasr.app/UML. There's a link to a specific one I'm using. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I will have it in the show notes, and that one works pretty well. You edit 2 of the settings for VS Code for this extension, and then you're good to go there. Cool. I have plans. I've seen there's a GitHub repository with an API to do this, so which means I could actually include the rendering as well in the tool in XrmToolBox, but well, that'll be for a future version then.
That'd be great. But yeah, it's certainly for the use case I have for it, that's less necessary because there's other ways to generate it. But it would be nice from the tool to do that. So yeah, absolutely get on that. That would be good.
So it really sounds like this is an episode where we continue to tell Jonas more stuff he needs to do.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. My evenings are starting to get a bit free now, but okay, now they're getting busy again.
Oh, they get free? I've got 3 kids all under the age of 10 and under, so they get free at some point in time?
Yeah, at the point of time when they don't want to see or hear about you anymore.
So Jonas has 6 kids, you have 3 kids, I have 1 kid, and with my 1 kid I have no time, so I don't know how you guys manage with all that extra responsibility. Jeez.
Well, they don't like me, that's it. Make sure they don't like you.
Well,
or move out.
Yes, it's not easy. It's not easy. I do spend a lot of time working from home. Actually is real nice though, because then you don't have to spend an hour each day in the car driving back and forth or wherever mode of transportation you get to and from work. So that's 5 hours a week that you get back. So if I spend 2.5 hours doing stuff for the community each week, I'm still 2.5 hours ahead of the guy that is driving without kids. So anyway, but yes.
I think we're getting slightly off topic here, but
who cares?
It's always fun to talk about kids.
It is.
But Reece, since you mentioned, you asked about which extension for VS Code I'm using. There is, if you look on the plantuml.com site, there's a link on how to run it, and it's literally, I think, 60 or 80 different ways where you can integrate this the PlantUML renderer in either in your application like VS Code, or you can add it to your wiki pages, or you can use it with Google Docs, and there's like everything in there.
Yeah, it's that's what I was saying before. It is such a flexible system, and they really have gone to town on it in terms of the ways you can make use of it. Yeah, that website really is terrible, isn't it? Jeez.
Maybe we shouldn't say that very much, because the other day there was actually the Twitter hash or Twitter handle at PlantUML retweeted something I said about this tool, so they're listening.
Good. They can update their website then. To be fair, it's functional in that it's pure HTML. But
it's
yeah,
very functional.
Yeah, when you look at it, it is tricky to. It kind of definitely reinforces the idea that this is a technical specification, which is again one of the reasons why the tool, Jonas, that you put together is quite nice, because it does abstract that away, so you don't have to know too much about PlantUML and how it works and how to run it in 80 different particular scenarios. So it's good work.
Yeah, exactly. So do you see anything ahead of you that you would like in the tool as well, now that you've taken it for a test drive?
Command line generation, obviously, but that doesn't kind of fit in with the XrmToolBox itself in many ways.
You have no idea. Because as I said, the twin tool, the late-bound constant generator, someone wanted to include that in their sort of build automation, and so he abstracted away. So there is a command line tool for that tool, which means it would probably be super easy to create it for this tool as well. On the other hand, I mean, since you specify for each sort of project you're working with, you specify which attributes and entities and relationships you want to include, which means, well, you would want this to be dynamic, like saying for the account entity, make sure to include these attributes plus all custom attributes or something like that, more generic. Otherwise, it would just always look the same. But there's definitely a possibility of making it command line based, so you can include it in some sort of pipeline.
Yeah, because that would be good. So if in the pipeline, as I mentioned before, having some sort of capability to automatically generate a diagram based on code that's been checked in. But then, as you say, if you have to also then remember to add in the attributes and entities you want in the diagram for it to generate correctly, otherwise it's just going to repeat the same thing over and over again. You could tie it to some form of early bound generation, because certainly if you're doing early bound. Hey, if you're doing early bound generation correctly, then really what you should be doing is selecting the attributes and entities you want to generate in a class file. So at the same time, you could use that to actually, target the attributes, relationships, and entities that you want in your diagram. That is, that's magic right there. But
Jonas, don't get upset that Reece is smart enough to know that early bound is the way to go. Don't be upset.
I'm not upset. He's my biggest fan so far on this tool.
It's funny. I'm quite late to early bound in that I've always been on the sort of side of late bound for performance reasons more than anything else. But every developer I've been working with, in probably the last 3 years now, has always leaned more towards early bound, just because of they always say, it's easier to work with, and I've never necessarily seen that until I started working with a team where they actually generated the early bound entities properly. As in, it was a pipeline in DevOps. So you actually, if you needed a new class file, you would just simply go to that, generate it, and it would create a NuGet packet for you, a package that you could then install you could just update in your project. And it was such a phenomenally brilliant way of working with it that I'm kind of sold on it now. So early bound, I definitely, in a proper project, that is a great way to work. Late bound is still very, very necessary for a lot of tools. So things like this you can't obviously do without late bound. So yeah, I'm very much in favor of knowing the tools in your toolbox.
I absolutely agree, and I will probably go more and more towards early bound as well. It's just I'm being the old stubborn guy here.
Yeah, you are being very stubborn, Jonas, especially since my tool already does everything that your late bound tool does. We're getting off topic. Let's get back to the CML thing. So the so far I've heard that the PlantUML is very flexible. You can have multiple ways to open it and that kind of stuff. Check in TFS in a manner that makes sense. You can select. I think this is a little bit different in that the other tool in the XrmToolBox is you kind of generate everything and then you remove things as you want to. That's been generated already. Where this is more of ahead of time. You're selecting what you want to see for each entity. So I think that's maybe another difference. Any other differences or reasons that you would use one tool versus the other?
Are you talking about the other entity relation diagram
Yeah.
creator?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say one thing that's an advantage with the other tool is, of course, that once you've rendered the model, you can, in sort of Visio style, drag around the entities and the relationships and so on. This you can't because PlantUML is text files. You can change it sort of in a small way by changing the direction of relationships and so on, but that's basically it. But I would say it's, of course, the selection of which attributes and relationships to include is a lot more granular than the other tools. So if you really want to pinpoint, okay, show me all the custom attributes plus the primary name attribute, and then just check all, and you can include that. So you don't get always the created on, the overridden created on, and the import sequence number and so on, because you usually don't want these. That's a bit better here in the sense that you can make more granular selection there.
Okay. And the whole idea of auto-generating your diagrams, how do you guys use those in your projects? Is that something that you just give to the new guy that comes on the team, say, hey, look at this, or what are you actually using this generated diagram stuff for?
I would say to get an overview, to know where we start working. This will probably not be the actual documentation delivered to the customer. Well, depending on the size of this model you need to render and so on, of course, it could be. But I mean, since the rendering is always automatic, you kind of feel like, okay, I would want to move this around and so on. And I have to mention also, now that we're talking about rendering, it's rendering currently in 3 different formats: 2 PNG files, just plain images, or SVG, or actually text files. So it's almost ASCII art files with the schema or the model there. And you can open the SVG file in Visio, and it will open as different objects and so on, but it's really clunky. It doesn't understand the snapping of relationships to the entity boxes and so on. So, but you can do some changes, but other than that, you're tied to how PlantUML decides to render it.
Yeah, and for me, I would, so there's 2 main reasons I use these kinds of tools. One is for documentation of some type, and the simpler I can make it for a customer, the better, usually, because no one really wants to read reams and reams of technical documents, and a picture does help to understand how the system hangs together. So the ability to actually select specific entities and attributes to build out a nice diagram is quite a helpful way of doing that. Otherwise, I would have just used Visio and built it out myself doing that. So it is quite nice to be able to point it at that. The other side would be technical documentation, very much to generate the diagram and say, for a similar sort of thing for a customer, but for a developer, and just point it to them and say, there you go, there's all the relationships in one place. Because navigating around the system to try and understand how entities hang together is arduous at best for a developer. So just anything to save a bit of time. And if that is happening over time, if you've built that into your process, every time you are, and arguably I haven't actually done this on a project yet, but it's something I'm going to be doing. Every time you do make changes, if you are generating a document to put in the source control at the same time, then you've always got that document there. So it becomes part of your DevOps process. So those are the sort of 2 main things: generating a relatively simple diagram for a customer, and a more technical in-depth diagram or text file for developers.
Okay, so I'm still seeing a use case of both tools. Then I'm seeing one being yours being more for maybe the dev centric, up to date, immediately up to date, always up to date, auto generated, whatever, open up a VS Code, open up in whatever tool you want to open up to look at that kind of stuff. And then if you want more of the pretty, more Visio-ish one, you probably will stick with the previous tool in the XrmTool toolbox, the entity relationship diagram creator. Is that am I barking up the right tree here?
Yeah, I think so. I agree there.
Yeah, I mean that's it's as I kind of said before, going to knowing the tools in your toolbox. It's good to know that there are different ways of generating that. Same, I still would drop down to a Visio diagram if I need to make something really simple. I may not have actually built the system, so I'll still use Visio to actually put together a diagram before I go and build it. If I've built a proof of concept, then I might use one of the tools to point at that to generate the diagram from that. I can then use one of the other tools for ongoing documentation in a project. So definitely, and fun enough, that entity relationship diagram, the first time I used this, I feel like it was years ago, and it must have been much simpler because I've loaded it up now, and it's pretty in depth. You can do quite a lot with it. But you're right, it does select everything that you've got in a solution. So you have to then pull things out. So both they work in different ways. It does seem like there's a little bit more going on with this tool. One thing actually that's quite interesting, Jonas, when starting up the tool, it's actually got a little picture, a little sort of help picture, and like pointing out how to actually use things and where to click and what each thing does. I do quite like that. It is quite a useful thing for a more complicated tool. It's better to make a tool that you don't have to do that with, but
the first 3 times it's really
well,
helpful.
yes.
Then it's just annoying. Away, go.
Yes, another dialogue to get out of the way.
Yeah. So I have in my tools, I usually try to sort of implement the different interfaces that XrmToolBox platform offers, which one is the iHelp plugin interface, which means if you open the tool, you can click the help menu and you will get a menu option there for this specific tool, and you click it and you go to some sort of website. And in my case, I have one page on my website with quite detailed documentation on this. So I try to direct users there as much as possible, and to make it visible or easy accessible there.
That's cool. I've never even seen that option up there, the help before.
Now you might do that, and hopefully a few listeners as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Reece, I really, really enjoy users that are in your persona where you're going to go, hey, that looks like something I might like, and go try out the tool when it's brand spanking new. And, we've just done enough stuff on that weekend that we feel like we could share it, and you can give some feedback and give some just feedback, even good or negative. I mean, just to know people are out there and they're using it is a huge it's a huge motivational factor when you're deciding what to do the next weekend or the next evening or whatever. And if you're working on a project and you work on it, and you don't hear a single thing back on it, you're like, oh, is anyone using this? And you may find out, next month that all these people are using it, but it's still it's trying to figure out where am I putting my time? How am I helping the community best, and while enjoying myself doing it. So,
and I think that's a big point, because one thing on this, in the past I've been terrible at that, really, really bad at that. The only reason I got more involved with this one is because Jonas specifically asked me, but at the same time, I want to do more of that kind of thing, because I'm still kind of dipping my toe into the community as a wider context of what I can do and what I can bring to the community. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone in the community that uses tools has that ability to feedback. So it's probably one of the simplest things that any user can do. I mean, I've been using the Fetch XML builder for forever, and I've been using the tracelog viewer more recently, quite considerably. So I definitely have things I could feedback. Although that said, Jonas is probably one of the few tool makers where quite a lot does evolve over time anyway. You do find with quite a lot of the tools that exist in here, I mean, there's 170, 180 different tools in here. Some of them are, there was an update a year ago, or it was last working in 2011. So there is a potential that, someone goes and builds something at the weekend and then kind of just forgets about it. Part of that might be that they're not getting the feedback to actually show anyone's using it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that. I mean, you're saying you're dipping your toes into the community here and seeing what your role might be, if you want to put it like that. But it's a very easy way of actually becoming part of the community and getting to contribute in that way. You don't have to contribute by improving stuff or by telling someone how to do things better or something like that. But just, okay, I'm using it. I'm finding it a bit hard. I don't know, should I click this button or that button? And why do I need to look in the menu for that and so on? So just this easy. I'm a user. I would like this to work in another way. It would make more sense and so on. And it's priceless feedback for us as developers of these tools.
So Reece, real quick question here for you. I know I don't have quite the relationship of kids to tools as Jonas here has, but since I do know you are early bound, do you do unit testing for your C# code at all?
We do, yes.
Okay, you use the fake XRM?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I have you ever used the Visual Studio Solution Accelerator that I have in the toolbox?
I have not. No.
Okay.
One thing that, so in terms of the XrmToolBox, I'm very conservative around the toolbox because I've been burnt with a few tools in the past where I've used them and something's gone horribly wrong. So I tend to only go into tools when there's a specific need that I've found to do that. That is changing. I'm actually, because there's so many tools and because I'm seeing more and more changing, I'm getting more involved in what is actually there. I'm being a little less conservative. And also I've been working with a few other people who are very quick to go and use different tools. So I'm hearing about a lot of tools I'd never even considered before. So it is something I'm starting to do a lot more with. So definitely I'll look into more of that. And also the early bound generation side, as I said before, I'm still relatively new to doing that. My history on that has always been, you have to go to the CRM SVC, the command line thing where you have to put in all sorts of annoying extra parameters, and that generates something, and every developer does it in a different way, and then all of a sudden your project's broken because everyone's done it wrong. That is a pain in the rear end, which is one of the main reasons I've not enjoyed working with early bound before. That's why I say the project where it was done through a DevOps pipeline and actually generated in a consistent manner every single time by every developer, that was brilliant. So that's kind of got me looking again at early bound.
Well, that is the reason why I created the early bound generator, because I hate messing around with the CRM service util command line. So I put a wrapper around it, but you could still use it in your pipeline too. So
cool.
And the Visual Studio Solution Accelerator, if you're on like a brand new project, it will go ahead and set up the projects and set up your early bound settings for you automatically for you. So you just type in your names and it creates all your projects and stuff. And if you want to use unit testing, you can use it uses the XRM unit test framework rather than fake XRM, but it will set all that stuff up for you and stuff like that. So give that a shout out and give me some feedback on that. So
that sounds amazing.
So you're looking for free testers?
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Exactly. That's it. So I'm giving him 40 minutes of fame on the XrmToolCast, the most popular toolcast for developers and of the XRM platform in the world, probably. Beats me, but yeah, I'll just say it is. I'll claim that it is. At least it's the most popular one with the Jonas and I on it. So yes, I'm trying to trade some fame for some free testing. So
that's good.
I've just realized, so I've just actually looked at the tools. So the DLab's you. I hadn't even connected the dots. Jesus.
Yes.
Right. So that's exactly what we were using on the project. And that was one of the things that was amazing about what we were doing. It was doing things that I'd never seen early bound generators do before. And it was someone else had set that up. So I hadn't looked into it. It's on my... It is literally on my to-do list for the next project.
Settings are checked into TFS, and everybody generates it the same way. Woohoo! Yeah, and it's actually DLab. That's the DLab, not DLab. DLab. It's from college. We started calling everyone by our screen names. So I was DLabar, but they just shortened it to DLab, and it kind of stuck. So that's the DLab author, so maybe I should put my full name in there next time, but yeah.
I actually originally have a really long last name, but I sort of made it to my screen name, Rap.
You've actually got a stage name.
Long name?
I could have.
I have not known that. You have a real last name that I've never known about?
I could have. Who knows?
The man of
Yeah,
mystery that
you
is
know,
Jonas.
you know, there's a danger to using your screen names too much. Okay, this is off topic, but I have to tell you, since we're talking about screen names and last names. Last week, my son went to London for a week and to meet his esports friends there. And their organization made the flight reservation, and they included his screen name in the flight reservation. It doesn't work well at airports.
That would be an issue.
I'm not
That would be
going to tell you which organization this was. They might come at me, but it was a bit of a panic there.
awesome.
Yeah. So don't use your screen names too much. But Reece, I have another question for you here. How would you like to see the UML diagram generator, but reverse engineered, so that you type your PlantUML and then have a tool generate the entities and the attributes in Dynamics?
Ooh.
That would take someone with a whole lot of skill in PlantUML, right?
Yes.
Or another tool that generates a PlantUML. So
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting technical challenge, but I suspect you're going to have a huge amount of problems with user error
No, me.
because
I
well,
wouldn't.
if
I'm pitching you with an idea for a tool. I heard you're a developer, so maybe this is your first tool coming.
This goes back to the lack of time. I would love to do some kind of tool,
Okay,
but
come back
to
in
me
20 years when your kids hate you.
that's true. Yeah, that one scares me though, because anything where you give anyone access to a text file that you then have to use to generate something, there's so many things that can go wrong there.
Yep.
But it's an interesting idea because I've certainly done a tool which clones entities, which it's not in exactly the same, but it does. You point it at existing entities, attributes, and things like that, and it will generate a new set of records based on that. And I've always thought it would be nice to have something that does that at the attribute level. I know there's actually a tool that I have used in the XrmToolBox to clone attributes onto other entities before, and I found that particularly useful.
Yeah.
But to generate something from a document like that, I'm not actually sure how useful that would be, to be honest.
No. And I know there's been for quite some years some tool that takes an Excel file and you just import it and it will generate entities and attributes, and then that, I think it wasn't maintained, so it became a bit obsolete. But then Tengi actually quite recently released his tool to do the same thing, and I've always been this, okay, so we should have someone from the business or what to create an Excel file with what we want and then just fire away and start generating stuff. Not sure.
Yeah. So I've used that tool before, the one that generates attributes based on an Excel file, and this kind of goes back to the idea in the toolbox where a lot of the tools you really have to know what it does and how it works, because it's very easy to screw things up. So the thing that I got burnt with in the past was the view replicator, where when I first used it, I hadn't realized that it didn't necessarily, certainly at the time, it wasn't replicating views properly across the different types of views. So you know how you get your quick view and your lookup view and your advanced find view. It basically corrupted all of my views.
So did you submit an issue to Tengi?
I think it actually warns you about that now and says you selected this view. Are you sure you want to do that? So
yeah, so that's exactly it. So at the time, I was like, no, that's it. I'm not touching one of these random tools ever again. I'm only going to use a tool where I don't have to where I don't make changes to the system. Hence why I use Fetch XML Builder a lot. Well, everyone uses Fetch XML Builder. So querying the system is an easy one.
Exactly. There's a difference between reading stuff from the system in an easier way and actually manipulating stuff.
Yeah, I'm very cautious now around the manipulating side and that sort of idea of generating attributes as well. So we've had questions like that from projects in the past where a customer wants the ability to say, right, here's a bunch of fields we want, and they want to be able to define the specific types of fields and maximum characters and that kind of thing. And we have considered generating. So for things like that in the past, I've created PowerShell scripts to do that as sort of one-off or as part of a pipeline. But yeah, it's a difficult one to do. I find things like the XrmToolBox are much better for admin type tools. something where you are querying the system in a specialist type way or interacting with it in a way that you wouldn't be able to do through the system, but you can do via an API, such as the user settings tool. That's another one I use quite a lot to bulk update user settings, because it's a nice simple thing. I know the tool works with a few caveats, and otherwise I would just build PowerShell scripts to do that, and that just takes forever. So that's where the XrmToolBox really shines, is those kind of tools.
Reece, for as much as I really want you to try the Visual Studio Accelerator, if you don't want to hose up your environment, stay away from the attribute manager.
Yes. Funny, I was thinking about that tool just now.
That's one where there is a whole bunch of hacks that I got in there that so far I haven't had any issues using it myself, but I know someday Microsoft may change something that I have a dependency on that I shouldn't, and it may completely hose whatever environment you're in. So it's an amazing tool for dev, where if you break it, you just delete the attribute and recreate it. But so I'd caution you in using that one. So just as the creator of it, I caution you in using it.
That's always good to know. That should be front and center when you open the tools. Like, be very
yeah. Please
user beware.
Down.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. All right. Well, Reece, it was great having you on here and getting to know you a little bit, and for just seeing you kind of get your toes wet in the community. Appreciate that. Anything else that you'd like to mention before we move on to how people get a hold of you?
So thank you very much for having me on. It's been great fun, and I will be paying much more attention to what's going on in the XrmToolBox coming up. There's an idea I've been playing with recently. I was talking to Jonas about, which is to actually go and try and review every single one of the tools in the XrmToolBox as a video review at some point. So that I'm hoping to bring in the next few months to YouTube. That's kind of my foray into that. I've got a blog that I've had for a while, but I haven't really done anything on there for a very long time. So, I mean, you can have a look, and certainly I will be putting things on there soon enough, which is ramblingreece.co.uk.
Rambling Reece.
Rambling Reece, yes, that's my handle on Twitter as well, if anyone wants to actually say hi. And I will be at the Scottish Summit in less than 1 month now. Yes, the end of this month.
We're going to be great. I'll see you there.
Yeah, it's huge. 1,000 attendees, 90 odd sessions, all free on a Saturday. I mean, it's really is shaping up to be an amazing event.
Yep.
Well, on the topic of doing YouTube video review stuff, if you do any of my tools, let me know. I'd be happy to come on with you and do some sort of shared screen sort of thing too, if you want to do that as a part of your YouTube stuff. So
that would be amazing.
And if you get that started really soon, you will only have to do about 180 episodes. If you wait too long, it'll be more than 200.
It's easy. You do one day, and then you don't do one the next day, and you repeat that pattern for a year, and you'll be about done by about time.
Well, that's it. I've just managed to finally get my my machine all set up for it, and hence why the microphone's relatively good on this, because I've actually got that specifically for this. So I'm kind of there. I think it's that. I think it's one of these things. You think, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a tool. I'm going to do this talk, or I'm going to do this blog post, and then you kind of get into the thing of, right, I'm definitely going to do it. Right, what am I going to do? I'm thinking about it. Then a week's gone by. It's like, crap, I haven't put any time into that. Baby's getting in the way. Work's getting in the way, and then so I'm at the top of the cliff. I'm just waiting to jump off.
It's easier when you're creating tools, because then you have this, I want to do this tool, I want to do this, and the weeks go by, and then when you suddenly realize, oh crap, I need this tool now, that's when you start building it.
Yeah, that's so one of the things I have built for projects before that I need to release at some point is JavaScript bookmarklets there's two extensions I've seen in the past. One's God Mode, I think it's called, and there's another one as well that I've come across where they effectively do things on the form in Dynamics or Power Platform. So they enable locked fields and show hidden fields, things like that.
You are obviously talking about Level Up.
That's it. Yes, Level Up. Yes.
By our MVP friend Natraj.
Yes.
Yeah, the main reason I didn't use that at the time was because I didn't like the idea of this extension changing the page itself. So I created bookmarklets that do the same kind of thing. Yeah, so they just run some JavaScript on the page.
You know that he created all those in bookmarklets that were already out in the community, right?
See, that's the thing. So I was thinking, I really need to do that, and I need to go and put that out there. But yeah, so there's so much out there in the community already. Sometimes it's not the simplest to find them. So you probably find that a lot of people have already built a lot of things that already exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why we have to. That's why listening to XrmToolCast is a good way to figure out your tools.
Yes.
It is.
Yes,
It definitely is.
It is.
And we'll make sure to put some show notes in there with the links to the stuff we mentioned.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, and then it's Rambling Reece. Although it's kind of funny because when you look at it on Twitter, it looks like it could be Ramblin' Grease. If you look at that way. So.
Yeah, it's like
Ramble in Greece. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Maybe it's a good thing I don't know what ramble means. So
To ramble around, to be rambling.
ramble in Greece.
In this context, it's rambling as in just constantly verbally rambling. So it's just talking without necessarily a topic and rambling. That's exactly what I tend to do.
You mean the thing that's when we said like 15 to 45 minutes is now 50 minutes of episode?
Yeah, you probably should have checked the name beforehand and checked up what rambling meant.
Yep, should have done.
That totally makes sense. All right, well, Jonas, as we have hit the 50-minute mark, how can people reach out to us?
They should reach out to us with ideas for episodes or comments to this episode or anything you want to share with us. Twitter at XrmToolCast or over email cast@XrmToolBox.com.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Reece, thanks for joining us, and hopefully everyone can make use of the new UML diagram that are on the more of the, I guess, PlantUML side of the fence. So.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks again, guys, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Will do. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been the XrmToolCast with Jonas Rapp and Daryl Labar. If you have any questions for Jonas or I, or suggestions for future episodes, please send them to cast@XrmToolBox.com or tweet to XrmToolCast.